Hey everyone, this is Austin Schur here with We Write About Music, and today I am speaking with Dominic DeLaney. He has just released a fantastic new album called For Life, and I'm super excited to talk to him all about it. Dominic, I want to thank you so much for coming on today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Currently, we are at a gas station trying to figure out how these water pumps and everything work. It's very foreign to me. Luckily, the drummer for the band I'm on the road with knows a bit about RVs, so we're in good hands as far as that. But there's definitely been a few instances where we've had to learn the hard way with this thing.
You know what? You live and you learn, and everything turns into a tour story at the end of the day. So I don't think it's that bad, as long as you're not stranded in the
Exactly.
middle of nowhere. And for those that may not know,
Exactly. Yeah.
Dominic, you were on a tour bus in the middle of South Carolina somewhere, heading somewhere else. So I said it before, but I'll
Yep.
say it again. Thank you for taking the time to do this. You've got this new record out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you've got this new record out. It's called For Life. I took the opportunity to listen to it, and it's seriously fantastic. I honestly mean that. First thing that I really want to talk to you about is I want to know what it's about. Is it a series of individual stories, or is there one overarching message that you've kind of put into it?
I think I think it started out as just kind of a collection of different thought processes that I had going on at the moment. But then, just a lot of things in my life were changing rapidly, and just the time period we're in, where we were coming out of a global pandemic and things like
Yeah.
that. It started to kind of take on the form of more of a complete collection of work. And that's where originally the idea wasn't to do another full length album. It was to put it out as two EPs.
Oh,
But we were sitting there, and I was sitting with all the songs, and um, to me, it just felt like it was one complete work of art, and that's how I wanted to present it. So this the record's a lot about the changes that I went through in my life, not only regarding the pandemic, but also I ended up getting sober at the beginning of this year.
nice.
Me and my wife got married. We had been dating for about 10 years. We were high school sweethearts and we got married.
Damn.
Yeah, so there's just a lot of big things that went on in the past year. And excuse me, yeah, to have them all kind of collected on this album, I think it does tell a bigger story.
That's wild. I mean, listen, like I said, I've only listened to it one time through, and I already know that I'm going to come back because there are so many stories on it that kind of need to be listened further and broken down. But the most attention grabbing thing is obviously the instrumentation and the way that it perfectly blends like this acoustic punk rock thing, which feels like a super underappreciated genre. Um, and I'm kind of talking all over the place, but you've also been referring to we. So putting this together,
Yeah.
did you have a band to help you in the recording studio, like on the production? How did
I
that look?
did. Yeah, so as far as the production was done by my good friend Ricky Bobby of this band called The Shake. And Ricky is also my drummer when
Nice.
I play with the full band. But with The Shake, he's the lead guitar player and singer, and a lot of the musical arrangements were all done by him. And we the first album I put out was made in the middle of lockdown and was made through a lot of Zoom calls and emails and stuff like that. Whereas this was the album that I'd always imagined making as a kid,
Sure.
where we got to sit in a room and go over how 15 seconds of music would sound for 3 hours. And just being in a room with all your buddies and stuff. So it was really this production process was amazing, and I think it brought me and Ricky closer. We also had our friend Rocky Rucker for doing production on this album as well, and yeah, the whole production process, like it did get a little tedious at some points. Like there's a song on the album that I yell at or yell in or at,
Sure. A little of both.
and yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
Sure.
But like I kind of went in that day and was like, all right, I'm just gonna knock out these yells real quick. And then Ricky was like, yeah, so we're gonna do that like for the next 3 hours. And
Ooh.
and so that took a bit of a toll. But the whole process was great, and I think that the excitement that I had for this album and the excitement that Ricky had for this album comes out in how it sounded.
Totally. I mean, yeah, you can feel the passion in it, you can feel the love in it, but it also helps to have this sort of like tight knit community that it seems like you have to not only play with you, but to tour with and work on other projects with. Which nowadays, as any sort of musician, having a community is so necessary. You just can't do it alone.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things is that I like to kind of raise my flag as a DIY artist, but
Yeah,
the whole thing of do it yourself doesn't necessarily mean do it alone.
right.
And that's where for instance, this band I'm touring with, The Shake, like they are some of the most talented musicians that I've ever worked with. Even though they cough every now and again when you're in the middle of an
Oh,
interview.
dude.
But yeah, they're just so talented, and they have that same work ethic and that same DIY mentality that it only made sense for us to kind of team up and work towards these common goals together. And then there, even back home in our community, the 561 music community, there's so many great bands that are kind of subscribed to that same type of mentality,
Totally.
and we tend to gravitate towards each other.
That's awesome, man. I love to hear that because not enough people are doing what you're doing. At least on the West Coast, I feel it's kind of like a survival of the fittest type situation. So you got to keep it together.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where you see a lot of acts that have that sort of crab in a barrel mentality where they think to get any sort of success they need to put other people down.
Right.
And I just don't subscribe to that idea. I think that there's enough musical territory out here for everybody, and the more support that you have for other bands, the more support you get in return.
Yeah, man.
It just seems to make more sense to me.
Exactly. So this is your second record, obviously capitalizing off of everything that was great on the first. But the question here is like, how did you approach the creation of this one now knowing so much more? Whether it be like
Right.
improvements in recording or technique or trying to, like not overuse your creativity on the first one and saving some for the second.
Yeah, personally, with this album, um, I had my first EP come out in 2019, and that was just an acoustic seven track album, I think,
Yeah.
EP. And some of those songs ended up making it into my first album because the EP was all acoustic, and so I had some ideas for full band arrangements for those songs. Um, this time around, it felt really good to go into the project essentially with a clean slate, and being able to do something entirely new.
Yeah.
So that was really a huge part of the process for me. This was also the first time I started experimenting with different types of songwriting, where my normal process was always I would have a few chords and I'd make some nonsense sounds and then be like, okay, well, these words could fit in those holes. Whereas this time around, the lyrics were hyper focused on, and
Okay.
for the first time in my writing career, I was able to write full songs of lyrics prior to writing any music for them, which was
Interesting.
an interesting process. And we had one song where it sounded great in my head, but the execution of it wasn't just there yet, so that one got left off. So we kind of picked the cream of the crop of the ideas that I've had for
Yeah.
the past year or so. But yeah, the process was definitely a lot a lot different. And but also it goes to my production team. The production team, being Ricky and Rocky, are two of my close friends and some of the most talented musicians I know. And so I knew that I was putting my work into good hands. And I think that's another thing that comes out in how good it sounds.
That's awesome. Is there one part of it that you feel that comes the easiest to you? Obviously, you said that you've made improvements in different parts,
Mhm.
but I'm assuming you haven't been a musician just in the last 3 years. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's got to be something
Yeah.
that either like you look forward to the most or anything along those lines.
Lyrics have always been a very important part of my writing.
Yeah.
Both my parents are English teachers.
Oh, that's,
So
yeah. That explains it
yeah,
all right there. That's
exactly.
hilarious.
So Yeah, so but then one of the biggest things too is I try to always put myself in the position that I was in when I was 11, 12 years old, writing my
Sure.
first songs that were god awful.
Right.
And I'm so glad there's no recordings of them anywhere. But like that type of enjoyment, like when you sit down in your bedroom and you write a song for yourself,
Yeah.
there's a type of enjoyment that I can't find anywhere else. And it's something that I've consistently thought about, because if you sit down to write a song that's a people pleaser, more often than not, it's not going to.
Yeah.
It's a
Because
lot.
people can
It's a lot
sense that
better.
you're either trying too hard or there's something disingenuous about it.
Yeah,
People,
100%.
obviously, people are smart. They're gonna sense what is real, what is not, and like, yeah, it just comes through in the way that you deliver the words.
Right. And so that's where, a lot of my writing is very experience based. And that way, because I don't feel comfortable putting something out into the public domain if I don't really have any ground to stand on with the topic.
Of course.
That's why I haven't written any sort of political songs or anything, because I
Yeah.
don't know enough about politics.
And also,
But I
we've
know
got
enough.
enough of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Rage Against the Machine covered
They
that.
summed it up as well as that's the only band we need.
Exactly. So I tend to stay with what I know, and what I've known for this past year of my life is immense change. Getting
Yeah,
I hesitate to call it a recovery album, but getting sober definitely played a huge role
sure.
in a lot of these songs, and especially right when I got sober, I was writing songs very quickly, and the whole album came together pretty alarmingly fast. So, um, yeah, I think that when you're writing songs that have a true meaning to yourself, that's something that resonates with people a lot more than trying to write something that's going to be popular.
Dude, that's a great way of putting it. Seriously, I have talked to a lot of sober artists, a lot of freshly sober artists that like stopped using or whatever it was at the beginning of the
Mhm.
pandemic, and I do hear similar answers, but it never changes the fact that it's like it might affect the way that you make music or see the world or whatever it is. So, I mean,
Yeah,
good for you, man. Keep it
absolutely.
up. Keep it up.
Thank you. Thank
That's
you
what it's
very
all
much.
day
Yeah,
by day.
it's yeah, and it's something that I didn't ever really consider as I figured I was just gonna get sober and then continue to write the same way I was. But the fact of the matter is that if you look at like my past two bodies of work, a lot of those songs could just be summarized as "I love alcohol," you know. And so and
Yeah,
it became pretty apparent to me that I didn't want to be looked at or be a one trick pony. I wanted
sure.
to be able to show that I have creative input and I still have some things to say. And the fact of the matter is that there's that dumb cliche that like artists are all fucked up and get drunk and write great songs, and I've never written a good song while I was wasted.
Hey,
So so for me personally, at least, this has definitely been working a lot better, and I'm very happy with it.
awesome, man. I'm happy to hear it. Is there something along the lines of the entire process that you look forward to the most? Not necessarily the thing that's the easiest to come by, but the thing that
Uh,
makes it all feel worth it, putting all the effort in, at the beginning of
uh,
it.
yeah, the shows. That's
The
it for
shows.
me. Like, the shows are so important to me, and things like this, like touring. Like, if you had told me last year that I would be on an RV doing an East Coast tour, I would have told you that you were crazy. And
Awesome.
especially with the pandemic, like there was a time period where it started to feel like this may never be a possibility, and to have
Yeah.
it back, it means the world. And we're going to these small independent venues that somehow survived the plague, and
Actually, though,
yeah, like it's crazy. And we're meeting these venue owners and these promoters and stuff, and it's all kind of that sense of like we made it through, um, the awfulness of the past 2 years, and now we're back, and we're seeing bands, even smaller bands, come back with full force and do these types of tours and have this type of commitment to their growth, because it feels like it's almost like the cork popping out of the bottle. It's just been building and building and building, and now we just hit that snap and it's
yeah.
time to go.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah,
People are
so
always going to enjoy live music. They're always going to find a way to see it. And I do feel like we're past that hump of
yeah.
obviously like venues and artists, we're always worried about them in some capacity. But yeah, there's always an urge for it. People just love to watch musicians do their thing. That's
Yeah,
simple
and
as
I think that it's critical to like our ecosystem essentially. Like
it is. It
we
is.
need those independent venues and we need those new bands and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Not everybody's gonna play Wembley or Madison Square Garden and
Of
stuff.
course.
And that's where you can find beauty in the $10 cover fee that you're paying to go see your local band. Like
It's true.
it's massively important. And back home we do a lot of shows on our local circuit, and we're always reaching out to our independent venues and trying to be as supportive of them as we can be.
Awesome. Speaking of touring, so obviously you're on tour right now, but please correct me if I'm wrong. You're playing with another band. Are you playing any of your music?
Yes, so I'm doing I'm opening on this tour. I'm the support act,
Got it. Got it.
and yeah, so I'm opening up for the Shake, and we're also in the process right now of doing a documentary for the entire tour.
Hell
We
yeah.
have we have our buddy Justin from a company called Live Music Community here documenting everything. And one of the biggest things with the documentary is that we're trying to portray what it's like to be a smaller DIY band. You see a lot of music documentaries about bands that have already made it or that are looking
Sure.
back at the good old days and stuff like that. Whereas this is more of the formative years of it. Like we're Ricky from the Shake is literally taping a drawer closed right now because we've learned this drawer likes to open in the RV.
Hey,
And
you
it's
live
just
and
like
you
those
learn,
little
you
things.
figure it out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Totally.
So it's something that yeah, we're really happy with the documentary. The Shake also at the end of this documentary is going to be going into the recording studio and doing their first full length album as
Oh,
well.
nice.
Yeah, so you definitely got to check them out. They're amazing.
I will. I mean, shoot, I even think from like the documentary standpoint, when I
Mhm.
think about it, 99% of the documentaries are of bands that either used to be bands, are already at their peak, but there's not enough happening where it's like, hey, we're not too familiar with them, or they don't give a
Right.
look into the DIY indie scene. So
Yeah,
please send it when it's finished. I would love to watch that. It's exactly the thing
absolutely.
I'm looking for.
Yeah, definitely. And it's something that, it's a big project for us. I think everybody is starting to realize this is our third day, I believe, in the RV. This is kind of everybody's starting to realize how big of an operation we've actually got ourselves into. Um,
Yeah,
so but yeah, we're all super excited and we can't wait to just keep going. But yeah, like the shows are the most important thing to me.
totally.
Um, I thrive off that. I do a thing where I count every show that I play, and tonight will be show number 293.
Holy
So
shit.
yeah.
That's a wow. That's a lot. I don't know if I've even been. I've probably been to that many concerts, but obviously playing them is a whole different story.
Right.
Wow, good for you, man.
Thank you.
I've got a couple more questions for you.
Yeah.
So we are, it's crazy to say, almost at the end of the year here. So
Yeah.
what does the next year of your look like hypothetically? What are some lofty goals that you'd like to hit, or just some things that you have in the works?
Yeah. So we're me and the Shake are kind of joined at the hip a little bit.
Yeah,
I also double as their tour manager,
just do it all,
which
man.
works out. It works out. And so we are planning some things for next year as well.
Sweet.
Hopefully to be on the road, and hopefully either this size capacity or continuing to grow.
Yeah,
I personally have a personal goal of playing a show in all 50 states.
love that.
This is knocking off quite a few of them for me. And then, we're just going to keep continuing to play shows and continuing to hopefully grow.
That's what it's all about. You got to keep pushing, keep doing bigger things. Love that.
Yeah.
Well, my last question for you here is basically for the person that is going to discover you from this, and for the person that is going to listen to your music for the first time, what is an opening message that you'd like to say to them?
I would say that essentially right now what is happening is a great polarization of my career. We are in the RV going down the interstate and the door has opened. We are
Oh
all trying to
my.
hold on to our stuff. And that's kind of just how it is. You know, we are not perfect. We are a band that learns as we go. Um, and everyone's welcome. The price of admission is enthusiasm. So come along.
You know what? I've heard it all, and now I haven't heard it all. This is amazing. Um, Dominic, before you drive off the side of the road, let me close this out by saying thank you for taking your time. This has been both unhinged and hinged at the same time, but I love it. But also, let me please plug your music for you. The
Yeah,
album is
yeah.
called For Life. It is as punk rock is the situation we're currently in. And we will have links so that people can listen and share and follow along and do all that fun stuff. But well, I hope you get to your next destination safely, and I hope to speak again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, man. It
You're
was a
very
blast.
welcome, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right, buddy.
Bye bye.